Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. Together, we are bringing you ideas about education, entrepreneurship, and relationships that are both inside
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Rick and Leisa Olson. They are Fuse family coaches, and they are parents to 6 daughters, grandparents to 13 grandchildren, are the experts for helping parents unify, strengthen, and empower their family. Fuse family programs teach the importance of taking responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, actions, or attitudes, and guides family to an awareness of their purpose together as a family. Rick has a BA in Recreation Administration and a graduate studies in Urban and Regional Planning and Design, and he has been interested in how the mind works and how we do what we do since he was 18 years old. Leisa has a certificate in early childhood education, has worked in the field for 8 years, and has worked with adult learning in 2 different communities. Both have studied for a year with Life Success Coaching and got their certificates as Life Success Coaches. And together they have been creating and offering parent-focused support and educational programs for parents and families for the last 17 years. Welcome, Rick and Leisa. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm so glad you joined us. Thank you.
Well, we're grateful to be here.
Yes.
Absolutely. It is wonderful because we are trying really hard to make sure that our podcast gives information for parents and families and entrepreneurs and how this all kind of works together and how we can support our families and make our families grow. And so Vibrant Family Education is really focused on families just like you are.
And when we talked earlier, you were mentioning how you were experts in blending families together. And
Yes.
We've been together for 30 years. Our family has kind of been together that long, so we don't necessarily have that kind of expertise. So how did you come to start working with blended families, and why is that so important to you?
Well, 31 years ago, we got married,
Yeah,
and we had the 6 daughters surrounding us in
us together.
our
Okay.
wedding photograph.
Yeah. And it was actually not until last summer, early fall, when we were putting our programs into an adult education calendar to distribute into the community nearby, that the person who was in charge of the calendar asked Rick, well, do you have any blended family programs? And Rick went,
Yes,
Yes.
we didn't, but we are creative content creators, and I knew Lisa could come up with something.
yes.
So
And
I said yes, and we did one
so
within, I think, about 3 to 4 weeks.
31 years of practice as a blended family, I think we have a little bit of experience there. And yeah, we put it together, and our first presentation that we did with a couple, I just got hooked on, I think we really need to focus more on the blended family, because as divorces have increased greatly over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So that means there's going to be more blended families. And even though we really wanted to save marriages so that children wouldn't be going through divorce, we felt that parents needed us because it's all about the children. That's what it all came back to for me was, but it's the children that are most important, because when they go through a divorce experience, there's so much going on in their life, and they really need to have parents that are very aware of what to look for and what they can do to help those children move through all those changes that are happening. And there's new roles.
Well, for each, we looked at all the roles that are involved in blended families, because with us, my daughters went from 1 sister each to 7 sisters and a brother within a year. So each one of those relationships, there's a role that they're taking on. And with each new role, there's rules, because all the
Things are
children
shifted.
interact differently. And
Right.
that's just the immediate children.
Mhm.
Right, exactly.
And then with my daughters, they're not about a year after we got married, I believe. So he had my ex had one child in between all of his till he got married, and then she had 2 children. So my children had 2 stepbrothers, and then they had 3 more children. So now they had 4 half siblings altogether. And they didn't really have a lot of contact with all of them, but yet, they do have this extended family.
Right.
And then we were talking about how when Rick's girls were together with us, we had this blended family of 6 girls and us, and my parents would always host an Easter event. And so our family, because we just consider us all one family, we went to these activities. So now Rick's daughters had, they suddenly had another set of grandparents and another 10 cousins and a bunch of aunts and uncles that they were a part of.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I mean, we have a little chart with
all
all of this, and
it's amazing.
It's incredible how complex it is.
Then you think of
Just-
his
just one
girls,
generation, yeah.
they go with their mom, and then they're with their stepdad who is with them, that's their everyday dad,
Right.
and then his children, and they go to their family events.
Okay.
So I think of his girls as like they're going from they're part of our family, and there's the new roles, new rules. They go back with their mom, and then once again there's another new family with new roles, new rules.
Wow, that you're right. It's so complex. And as a teacher, I got to see, the impact of the divorce and the blended
Yes.
families and things like that. But I never thought about the extended that happened on the weekends or over the summer, or things like that. So that puts a new perspective in my brain about how big that can be.
And then people wonder why these children are misbehaving, and they're not really misbehaving.
No.
They're just surviving.
Trying to
Overwhelmed.
Yes, because I really don't feel like children are resilient. This is their whole world. They don't know anything else, and they're just adapting to whatever is happening, and they're losing trust in like when I think about one of my daughters who she had a lot of challenging times in having a relationship as she got into her young adult years.
Yeah.
Because when she was around 6 or so, when she was having this talk with her dad about, why the divorce and everything, and he just says, well, sometimes you just stop loving somebody.
Whoa.
And so she said, that's like the worst thing he could ever have told me as a little child, because she grew up
He
thinking
stops loving me.
someone's going to stop loving me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The impact
So-
of words and how you explain things.
And
Yeah.
divorces
Wow.
don't typically all go very smoothly. There's a lot of bitterness. The government gets involved. So there's all sorts of things. And a lot of times the children become just there. They're not part of it. They're just kind of left out. Oh, they'll grow out of it. We can deal with that later. And
No.
that isn't a very healthy way to go about it. So in the divorce, it's like, yeah, the kids can get left out and feel pretty out of it. So coaching, blend them back together is really important.
And think about when the two couple or the two people are blending their family.
Yeah.
How often do they talk to their children about it? Because the children have no choice.
Right.
If they're getting together, they're there,
Yes.
and there's nothing that they can do about it. So I remember Lisa's second youngest, when just after we were married, she would come and push between us and push me back. And we didn't really think much about that then, but it was her way of saying, I want my mom,
Mhm.
or, you're not my dad. And, that's
I'm
what
not
my
ready
dad
to
does.
share that much.
Yeah.
So when I think back to that time, so I had a 3-year-old. When we got married, Melanie wasn't quite 5.
Mhm.
And then Catherine was 6 and Bronwyn 7.
My daughters were 8 and 10, I think.
No, they were old, 10 and
Oh.
13.
I'm a
But when
dad. I don't know those
But
things.
when I think back to those 4 little girls, and
Right.
I'm going, how much did I talk to them about it?
Yeah.
And what did I say? And how aware was I of the impact on them? I felt that I did have some awareness,
Mhm.
and I just really want to be this parent of the parents
Uh-huh.
and to just help them to just take that extra time with their children to really listen to them and to realize that they're really not misbehaving.
Right.
They don't have words. So like that one child, the one that kept pushing us apart, when she was 2, when she watched her dad walking out the door, and she has this very vivid memory of that and of an emotion that went over her that she didn't have words to tell me about. And when she was a teenager, that's when she got in touch with that feeling of I was abandoned and I wasn't good enough for my dad to stay here.
Mhm.
So that's a big impact that it has on children, to think that, from a toddler, there's an emotion that they're feeling. And if you're not able to help them work through all of that, it can cause a lot of troubles as they get into their teens and young adults, and having a difficulty just understanding relationships.
Right.
There's a lot of adults that still don't understand that,
Yes.
still have those blockages, and it creates a lot of issues within their life, especially when if they do start to feel this, they think something's wrong, and it can really take things apart. So what is it that you do? How do you go into a family and start working with them to bring this awareness to not only the parents but with the children? Where does that start?
First of all, we don't work with the children. We work with the parents because we want them to be the heroes to their children. And when I say heroes, I mean that they are the ones that bring information, knowledge, and values and beliefs to their children.
And they're the role model.
And the role model.
I love it.
Because that's what a hero is. They're the ones that protect, serve, and they're the role model of helping and serving people. I mean, think of all the superheroes.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what parents are to children when they're really young. And they lose that. Well, particularly with all of the media and movies in the 80s where the dad
90s.
or 90s, when the dad was a doofus.
Yeah.
And he was the dumb one and all the kids were the smart ones. Think about the impact on the children where they disrespected particularly their father, but also their mother in those kinds of movies and media type of ideas. And that's something that we need to work to overcome, is that kind of disrespect for parents.
So
Yeah,
what
the
we
impacts
do,
have just gotten so much worse in the
Yeah.
last several years as well. So
Yes.
completely understand that.
when we work with parents, we work with them as individuals for, well, was it like 4 or 5 weeks
Uh-huh.
In our program.
in our program, so that we help them, because all the great leaders, the successful leaders, all say, work on yourself more than on your business or your job. And we say more on your relationship, work on yourself more. Because when you are whole, you have 2 whole people together, they're able to have a better relationship. They're better to communicate and to understand life better.
And children are like little sponges. So as they see the parent working on themselves, working to become a better person, then they can see, hey, that's kind of the way to do things. And then they can maybe take that in on themselves. So that is such a powerful message that you're working with there.
Yeah.
So when we teach our circle of responsibility, that, you are responsible for every thought you think and feeling you feel and action you take. And when we teach couples, they have their own individual circle of responsibility, and together they have a relationship circle of responsibility. And in doing this, they can help set that example for their children and begin to help their children to understand that they too are responsible. And who is the person that you choose to be? And I know from past experience that when you set up something similar to that, and you're the one that starts to step outside that circle, your children are going to be the first to say, hey.
Gotcha.
And so
Yeah.
now you have an opportunity to be a wonderful example of, I goofed. I should not have been yelling at you. And I know that I made you feel scared and you are not feeling safe when I'm yelling. And I'm sorry, that's not who I choose to be. And this is probably the way that I should have handled it. And I'm really sorry. And you're asking forgiveness from your child, and your child is like, oh, like what an example that is, that even mom and dad can goof up. We all make mistakes, but it's what we do with that mistake.
I love that. It was like that in the classroom lots of times, whenever there were classroom rules, it's like, you were responsible for your actions and behaviors. And if you step outside those classroom rules, how are you going to make it up to the class? How are you going to be a better citizen in the class? And so I can see that same kind of dynamic in the family through what you're setting up. And that is beautiful.
Yeah, and if you're always following the rules and always doing stuff right, then you're not necessarily learning. It's when you actually make a mistake that you have to correct yourself and do something different or feel something different, that's when growth happens. So
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't necessarily say break the rules on purpose, but when you do step outside, that is when the biggest learning opportunities happen.
Yeah. And one of the things we really want to make clear to parents so they can make it clear to their children is that you are responsible for your thoughts, feelings, and actions, not your spouse's thoughts, feelings, and actions, because they are responsible for their own. So you've got these two people that have their own thoughts, feelings, and actions. And if somebody steps out and yells or does something outside,
you just make me so mad. Well, that's the choice.
Who's mad? It's the person that was upset, not the person that wasn't upset or that stayed in their circle and their responsibility. So it's really clear to make sure that there's that boundary, that if somebody else is saying something like that, it's their problem, not yours. They have to deal with it. So you either back away or you work at it in a different way.
And another thing that we've really came to an awareness of as we've been working through our program with the lens of a blended family is that when a couple is coming together to create a relationship core where they're looking at the couple that they choose to be, is that they're bringing in a lot more baggage than normal.
Yes.
Because they most likely have just come from a broken relationship, and broken relationships is trauma. There's a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of patterns that have happened, so that when they start to do this, they're going to do all of that, and you're waiting and waiting for your new spouse to be following that same pattern and anticipating.
And hopefully they don't, because that was a bad pattern to begin with.
Exactly. So what happened with us, and about a year and a half into our marriage, I mean, I had this because my past husband, my ex-husband had said to me one day, just like after some counseling and things, just boom, is that I just don't love you anymore. And I don't know if I ever did. And that was it. Emotionally, he left the marriage. So that I didn't realize the trauma that went through me at that time. And we had just discovered that baby number 4 was on the way. I was like, oh. And so there was a lot of hormones, a lot of emotion going on. And so when Rick and I got married, because he's always, every day, you're so beautiful. I love you. And he said, I promise that I will only say that when I feel it. And so this is like a daily occurrence. And I'm thinking, oh, after about a year or so, this is like kind of too good to be true. he's gonna just one day also feel maybe this is way too much that he's taken on, and he's just gonna be done. And I was kind of, I guess subconsciously,
Right.
you're waiting for this. And so I was subconsciously, I think, becoming more confrontational,
Uh-huh.
because we started to have these heated discussions. And Rick was saying, like, why are we arguing so much?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I don't know. And so this one morning where I was sitting at the foot of the bed and something else had happened and I was starting to cry, and Rick's just like had enough, he's like, he's leaving the room. And I'm like, no, don't go. Just come sit beside me, put your arm around me. Don't fix it. Just let me cry it out. And so he did. And that's when this whole thing just surfaced for me, going, I'm scared. I'm scared you're going to leave me. And I'm the one that's going to be the one who leaves this time so that I don't get hurt.
Okay.
I don't want to be hurt again. So here I am, without knowing, quietly sabotaging this wonderful relationship. And so like Rick said then, he says, I am not your ex. I am not that person. I am committed to you, and you're not going to get rid of me that easy.
Good
And-
job, Rick. Love it.
Thank you. It wasn't easy, but
yeah,
yes,
he didn't do the fixing. He just listened.
that was hard too,
Yes.
not to fix.
Yeah.
But, this is what's going on inside our subconscious, is that we have to be aware of when we get angry and we're arguing and something comes up, the triggers, going, where is it coming from? And to be kind and compassionate with each other and going, maybe it's from something that happened with your ex and that relationship, and to talk about it and really listen to one another, because that helps to heal.
Right.
And once you can help work through those, now you can be more aware of your children having their behaviors and going, they're really going through a lot. So we're really hoping that once these couples see all these circles, all these people that are all together, and how their children are going from they're one person here, but another person there.
And then another person there and there and there.
Yes, and all the expectations, the new family members they're meeting, that they will really just take to heart that these children just need us to love them, bring them in, not send them away or punish them.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, mom has me act this way. You have me act this way. Where am I in this?
Yes.
So one of the questions that pops into my head, especially with blended families and probably with a lot of other people, is like, you were talking about rules and responsibilities. Well, especially those kids that go back and forth, they have one set of rules and responsibilities over here. They have another set of rules and responsibilities over here. How do you kind of maybe help guide the parents or guide the kids to understand the two sets and when to kind of like, I don't know, delineate or break it up? It's like, oh, I do this here, I do this there. Because kids are just learning, and that's a hard concept even for adults, how to act different in different places.
Yes. I think the biggest thing is being consistent in your home, and that and you talk about the expectations that you have.
Mhm.
I think children can understand the expectations, and we know from experience that if you have an expectation of those children, they'll more likely live up to that. So if you expect them to be naughty and, they're just, terrible teens, they'll more likely be that.
Right.
The environment that you see them in. But if you see them as, the
People.
expectations of people and being, like Lisa's daughters were exceedingly good at being polite and kind, and they were just lovely children. And that's the expectation that Lisa had put into them.
Right.
Yeah, because this is just how we are to interact as humans. We are kind and we are polite, and we understand, you talk with them about when you're going to go to a new place and how you're going to interact and what are the expectations, so they know.
Yeah.
And you can also be very honest that here we have a certain set of rules, and over there's another set of rules. And you may have to change some, but when you're here, we'll be as consistent as we can and keep everything comfortable for you.
Right. Yeah. So maybe a process of reminding the kids when they're
Yes.
switching back and forth. I know things over at Dad's house is like this. Remember, when we're here, these are some of the things, especially at the beginning, to help make sure they're
Yes.
recognizing the differences between the two.
Yes, and I think the other tool that we have is with these circle of responsibilities is that as a family, we have a circle. And so as a blended family, it's just bringing the children together, like bringing everyone together to talk and discuss. And what we call is creating an emotionally safe environment. Like you can have a safe environment for your children. We're not beating them.
Right.
But can your children express in front of all the rest of the family members their feelings about certain situations without somebody snickering or
Using sarcasm.
So we kind of put a
Right.
line through sarcasm.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And so with the children feel safe, we call it a brave space, that they can feel brave to
Mhm.
talk
Yeah.
in this group of their new family with their new siblings and parent, and be able to work together, talking and understanding what is it that we would like to be when we're together as a family. What are what kind of traditions would we like to create, and what kind of feeling do we want to have in our home? And if we have those feelings, and what are the things we're going to do together so that we can have that feeling? And so if you're doing this with your children and helping them to understand that things are going to be different when you go to your other parent's home, and helping them to work through it. So like, what are you feeling? How does it feel for you? Is there something that we could do to help make it easier for you? And understanding them. So I guess when I grew up, being the youngest, for some reason, I didn't always feel like I was valued.
Mhm.
That was just the impression I got as an adult. That I was loved and cared and everything. It wasn't a terrible family, but it's just, I didn't have that feeling of being valued. And that has been something that I really, really want parents to understand, is that every child needs to feel they're important and valued in that family for just being them.
Mhm.
And when you listen to them talk and let them express themselves, then they're going to have that feeling like I am important.
Yeah.
So when we first started talking, you had said that you had originally wanted to get involved before people got divorced in the first place to try and
Yes.
prevent this.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would like to kind of point out is if you've been divorced the first time, the divorce rate on second marriages, the percentage
higher.
is even higher.
Yes.
So in a way, you are doing that now by working with the communication, by developing this, because having a blended family is incredibly stressful, and having those interactions with the opposite parent, and that can be super duper stressful, and then you add more stress to the marriage. So what you're doing is also, I can see very much marriage counseling, relationship counseling, as in kind of the guise of being there for the children. So have you recognized that as well?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the things before we move on, we don't counsel. We're not counselors. We're
Yes.
coaches. So a
Coaches.
big difference. So we don't want any misrepresentation of what we do.
Yeah, so I'm a psychedelic coach. So yeah, I can't. I understand that we can't use words like heal and counsel, because that is relegated to the medical
Yeah.
industry.
There's legal stuff.
And so there's
around that.
legal stuff around that. So yes, coaching.
Coaching.
Yes,
Yes.
very, very much.
And we recognize that what we teach in our blended family course is actually very applicable and totally applicable to a nuclear family, like a
Well,
couple that's
because that's where it all started. And it's all about, first, becoming the best person. It's understanding who you choose to be.
Mhm.
So if you can really get clear on who you choose to be and understanding the thoughts that you're telling yourself, and I'm making sure they're in harmony with that person, then no matter who you're dealing with in the family, because I don't really think that people go, well, I'm just going to choose to be a nag, a controlling person, and angry and judgmental. Like, no, we
Right.
don't choose that. That's not the person we know inside. But these things happen. And so if you are first, you have your own circle of responsibility and you know who you choose to be, then you're going to behave accordingly. And it's going to be not to just your new spouse, but to your ex-spouse and the extended families, because you want to be the best person you can be. And if you are demonstrating consideration and kindness to those around you, your children are seeing that. And they're going to grow up to know that no matter what kind of a person those people are, we can still be kind.
And that's one of the things I really love and value about Leisa is she models that kind of philosophy. She was extremely forgiving and polite to her ex almost all the time. There's only one or two times I can remember that she got a little angry, but that's, you know.
Exactly. Well, and that's one of the things, going back to my classroom experience, is that whenever children were experiencing a family that was divorcing, their behavior and how they acted in the classroom was completely dependent on if the parents were making sure that the situation was the best it could be with a child.
Yes.
Meaning that, yeah, they were mad at each other, but they weren't taking it out on each other in front of the child. They were still coming to parent conferences together and listening for the benefit of the child instead of fighting and, oh, I need my own conference time and, all of that kind of stuff. Now, I understand that there's some situations where that just absolutely can't happen. But for the most part, if you put that child first and work together with your ex, even though it's really a benefit for the child.
Exactly. And they're the most important.
One of the things that we talk about is that most often people say, well, our marriage just isn't working out. And I'm sure you hear that almost with a lot of them, the high profile people, movie stars and so on. You hear that often, but we believe that it's not that it hasn't worked out. You just haven't put the work in to make the marriage work.
And we give you the work to do so that, because it's like, well, then what would I be doing? Like for me, I have to have a kind of a concrete image of, well, what does that look like? And so we help couples to see just what that work looks like. And that way they have a process to go through.
Right.
And when they work slowly through this process, that hopefully they're changing as well, that they can see that they can bring out the inner person of who they really choose to be, and that they're able to live that and find a way to do it and to notice when they're not.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. And
Exactly.
if these concepts, if these ideas haven't been brought forward, then it's like you might feel like I'm wrong, I'm bad, there's stuff's going wrong, it's all her fault, all these things going on because you don't have the tools or the understanding of what should be.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's really incredible.
Yeah. Very much so.
And so what are some of the first steps that when you're working with parents in blended families, are they coming to you like right off the bat, or normally are they coming to you once they start having problems? Where in this process
Actually, some of them come as they're blending. They're not living together, but they have seen some concerns, and it's particularly with the children, I think. One of them, the daughter seemed to be, she was 15, was it?
I don't remember.
Seemed to be closer to the
new becoming stepfather
than her mother, and that was causing some frictions. And And the mother was having difficult time trying to deal with this behavior and she was doing some rude behavior to a mother, but being attracted to the new boyfriend thing. So there's lots of different issues, but the thing that we do is we have them sit down and actually look at what it is that they want in themselves. What do they want to be, do, and have as a person? So do they want to be a loving, caring spouse? Do they want to be a great parent? So once they get the idea, and we give them a worksheet and they put that down in the 3 different columns, what they want to be, they want to do, and what they want to have. And then we help them see that this is the person inside. This is their starting point. And from there, they work towards understanding. Well, we take the word want out of that too, because have you ever noticed how want is kind of you don't have it? So it's a lack.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because,
If
but I
you
mean,
want
you
it.
have to start somewhere. And if you start with the wanting, you're just kind of like, what is it you want? Just what do you want? Take all the limits off and just enjoy what it is you want. So you have a starting point.
And then we move them into what you choose to be, choose to have, and choose to do. Because if you think about it, choose is a more powerful word. It's almost like an action word. It has a positive focus. I choose to do this.
So you're making a decision
That's
within your mind. You're
Right.
just like, right, I choose to be this person. And if you choose to be this person, then these are the things that I choose to do then. And it's because what I choose to have is this.
Yeah.
So when Rick and I were going through our worksheets, and he just found it easier to go with, well, I know what I choose to have. And he got that all clear. And then he was able to work back to the doing and the being until he understood this is who I choose to be. But either way, you figure it out.
Yeah, a work backwards process sometimes works better.
It does, yes.
And one of the easy ones that I've got is that I chose to be an artist. This was during my divorce time. I needed something to take my mind off of everything. So I decided to get into watercolor painting. And then when I went back to university to do my grad studies, there was a fellow that was doing pen and ink rendering. And because we used a lot of technical pens in what we were doing in urban and regional planning and the design aspect of it, I had these pens. And I thought, I can do that. So I just started doing it. And I have a collection, for me to do that, I needed to have some tools. To be an artist, I needed tools.
Yes.
So it was easy to get the tools. And with a ink pen, you can't erase it. It's a permanent. So I didn't need an eraser. And then what I want to have, and we have a wall now that I can do it on, is an art collection. All my works on one wall, so that when people come into our house, they get to see my work. And that means a lot to me, because there's a lot of, one of my drawings of a castle took me 50 hours to do. So there's a lot of work, but when you know what it is that you want inside, and something that gives you that feeling of, yes, have value, I can do things and produce something that, like, I've sold some drawings, so other people like them too. So yeah, that's a good thing to have, is that sense of who you are and what you can do.
So we help couples to look at first for themselves of this understanding of finally of who they do choose to be, do, and have. And then we work them through the process of consciously choosing thoughts that match that. So now what kind of thoughts are you going to focus on? So that it also helps to see, help you become aware of, oh, why am I thinking so negatively today when this is who I choose to be? And right, I have written down thoughts. I have a place where I've written down the thoughts that I should be focused and thinking of. So you can go back to that and think on those thoughts, because our thoughts that we have create emotions.
Mhm.
And so if you've got positive, fantastic thoughts going through your head,
Right.
you're going to feel so much better. And now you're really wanting to make some goals, and you're like, you have enthusiasm, and you're like, yeah, I can do this and this. And once you start doing those things, now you're starting to see those results of who you choose to be, do, and have.
Right.
Now you've got this really exciting cycle of success going on.
But we're human. And we always step outside of our circle. And we have recently called those triggers, because
Right.
it's not so much, well, I guess they're triggered, but it's when you have something that you're feeling like, I'm so mad, that's a trigger. You've been triggered by something in the relationship. And the idea of the triggers is that there's this stimulus response gap.
Mhm.
And if you're triggered, you don't have any gap. You're just reacting to
Exactly.
it's immediate and reacting. And most of the time it's negative. So what we talk about in these triggers is that you have the time
Mhm.
to be able to decide what response you're going to get to that particular trigger or stimulus.
Right.
And if you think in advance and you know what triggers that you have, and we actually have a worksheet on that, where you can look at some of the triggers that happen between the relationship between the two of you, and even between you and your child. If you predetermine your response to that, then you have a better chance of moving from the stimulus, having that chance to remember the predetermined response, and then you respond. And hopefully you've got that predetermined response right, and it really helps the situation.
So I'm going to wrap back something real quick that you said.
Yes.
You were talking about being a hero to your children.
Yes.
Children, they emulate their heroes. They get their Spider-Man underoos, they get their Superman underoos, and then they like pretend to fly around, and they pretend because they see something that they like, that they respect in that person,
Mhm.
and they
Yes.
want to be like them. So if you can choose to be your child's hero and be there for them, then instead of out there emulating Superman or emulating their favorite artist or emulating this guy that was able to beat up the bullies and be okay, then they're going to emulate that. But if you become their hero and you are becoming okay within yourself, like you're talking about, and then they can start emulating you as their hero and being that themselves. So
Yes.
I just kind of saw that thread developing through our conversation, and I wanted to bring that up and say that is just a beautiful,
You're
beautiful.
dead on. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we do. And thank you for using the word choose. You use the word, if you choose to be their hero.
I do listen.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes, is a choice.
So
Everything you do is a choice.
Mhm.
It's either a bad choice or a good choice, but you still have the choice to do it. And we want people to choose the better choice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Anyway,
And so these wonderful children who are seeing how to be better adults,
Yes.
and how to have a good, loving relationship, are going to grow up, and hopefully they will have healthy, wonderful relationships, and then divorce can go way down.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
that's the legacy that we
they'll
want to
also
leave.
see how important coaching is, and that they can't necessarily do it all on their own, and will also continue to look outside for help so that they can get a better view of what's going on inside, like what you do. So,
Mhm.
so you don't just like coach and say, here you go. It's like there's always this coming back to it. And so, wow, I kind of lost where I was going with that.
That's
Well,
okay.
as we do our workshops with couples, we have the worksheets there, and we block time and have them fill it out. where people are really hesitant. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that when I go home. No, you're not going to do it when you go home. You're doing it here because we need you to finish this worksheet so that we can go on to the next step. And it takes a while for people to get comfortable with that, but this is what you're here for. This is the work that you need to put into so that you can have a successful blended family.
Or family.
Or-
Doesn't
yeah,
matter which.
Yes.
which kind, yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing is that, hopefully through this whole process, we're reducing those traumas to the kids. So
Mhm.
they
Yes.
have less to deal with when they're older also. So, we're helping in so many different circles by building this process. So better relationships in the future, less trauma in the future, all those things.
Exactly.
I'm going to say different trauma because
That's true.
again, trauma is required for growth.
Yeah.
So instead of repeating the pattern of no, let's fix this. Let's fix this for our family,
Mhm.
and then let's find some other trauma that we can deal with so that this is another thing that we can fix in our family.
Mhm.
So instead of like repeating the same things over and over again, it gives you an opportunity to find new areas for growth.
It does. Yes. And you keep growing that way. That's
Exactly.
important. Very important.
So yeah, you never actually run out of a need for a coach. There's always
There's always.
the next
Something to
thing.
work on.
Even in entrepreneurship, the best
Mhm.
entrepreneurs have coaches. The best golfer in the world for decades, or for at least a decade, was Tiger Woods. He had like 8 coaches. So
Different
it's like
aspects.
to be the best, it's like you can't necessarily get there on your own. So
So-
with that in mind, if people do want to get a hold of you, if people do want to figure out how need this kind of coaching, what are some ways that they can get a hold of you?
Well, our website is fusefamilyfocus.com, and that has most of our recent programs on it. And you can reach us at admin@fusefamilyfocus.com.
And even if it says it bounces back, we've had
Yeah.
a few bounce backs, but we still get the emails.
I think we do all
Yes.
the time. But in any case, if there's that problem, then you can email us at rololson@yahoo.com.
Well, we have another Gmail one too.
Oh,
We
okay.
do.
We'll put all of this in
Yeah.
our show notes.
We do. We have, because we put fusefamilyfocus@gmail.com so that we just had another alternative
Mhm. I
with
love-
our email address to go to. And I believe we might even have phone numbers on our website if they really needed to get a hold of us.
Right. But usually email or through the website is the best, because then,
Yes.
you're not playing phone tag, you're actually getting messages
And-
solid.
and you-
Yes.
And you can find us on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
Lisa's
Yeah.
on Pinterest, and some of the social sites.
I'm on LinkedIn too.
Oh, are you?
I think I might even be linked into you.
And like I said, we'll make sure that we put
Yeah.
that in the show notes down below. And Rick and Lisa also gave a free gift for the families. That will be in the show notes. It's a link to, I can't remember what it is right now, but just look there, and it's something that they wanted families to have and a way to contact them.
Is that
I
our,
believe it was 30 days to family joy.
Okay.
And in my world, it's become almost kind of a cliche statement, but it's like even on planes, they say if in case of emergency and these masks pop down, you
Mhm.
put your mask on
yes,
first
you do.
before you try and help your children. So, that is so important even in this work that you're doing. You really do need to put your mask on and deal with your issues so that you can show your children and then help them get their masks on as well.
Thank you. I'd never thought of that analogy, and that's a very good one. I like it.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, it has been a wonderful chat with Rick and Lisa Olson and the Fuse family. Yes.
I didn't necessarily mean to end it. My time since.
Oh, that's okay.
Is there anything
Elsa.
else that you would like to
Yeah.
talk about that we haven't covered? Is there one last little bit nugget that you would want to throw out there for our parents who might be struggling and needing some help? What can they start doing?
The only thing I can say is we never talked about homeschool and some of those issues, but maybe we can do another one of these calls and
Yes,
talk about that,
exactly.
because
Yeah.
we do have some background in that.
Yeah, we had some homeschoolers for a while.
Right, exactly. Yeah, let's do that on another show,
Yeah,
about a month or so, okay?
sure,
that
no
sounds
problem.
great. Rick and Lisa are on our family education series that's happening, and there's 2 weeks left, this week and next week. And then also there will be another summit coming up where you will also get a chance to talk with Rick and Lisa and see the speakers and things that are coming their way. And so if you are interested in finding out more, follow the different links for the different series and events that are happening as well.
And some of our initial conversations were centered around homeschooling, but we kind of got so into this, wrapped into this. It was so interesting that I completely forgot the homeschool aspect.
That's okay.
to talk
This
about.
is our passion, so it's easy to
And it
draw
was
us
so
into
obvious
this.
because it's just so genuine and it's just so there. There's nothing phony or fake about what you're talking
It's
about. It's
so
just, and it's
heartfelt.
so there. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for doing what you do.
Though I really wish that there could be more and more children homeschooled. I just feel like the more influence they can have of their parents
Yes.
and be able to be immersed in the understanding of their core, their circle of
Yeah.
responsibility. And I
Yeah.
think that they would just blossom more as a person.
Yeah, because being at school, they're away from that, their
Yeah.
hero, they're away from the understanding, they're away from the growth.
Yeah.
And they might be learning, some facts, but the stuff that they need for life comes from the home.
We need to not go there right now.
Yeah,
Could be another hour
A
talk,
whole
yes.
A whole nother podcast.
For that
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You will get to hear Rick and Lisa again. We'll have a whole nother discussion on the other part of family, that education that we want to bring in and make sure is secure there as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you
You're
for sharing
welcome.
your wisdom. And we look forward to talking to you again. And listeners, if you enjoyed this, please make sure you let us know that you enjoyed this and want more information. And we will talk with you soon on our next podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.